and gentlemen, welcome to the Power to Empower webinar 2021. My name is Faith Mangope, and it's such a pleasure to be your facilitator for this afternoon's conversations. And what that means is we get to find ourselves in a time where we engage with one another, learn from each other, share some key insights from some of the journeys that we've undertaken during this course of being able to establish ourselves as leaders in the business front. And we also get to just share with each other our experiences coming in from quite an authentic space. Dr. Precious Moloi-Motsepe is the founder and chairperson of the African Fashion International, co-founder and CEO of the Motsepe Foundation, driven by a passion for Africa and the talent for African people. She also started Fast Track as a developmental platform for identifying as well as mentoring young designers.
In our economy, access to opportunity for women remains low. Close to half of all South African women who want to work cannot find work. There is twice as many men who are leaders and senior managers as there are women. In many households, women remain disempowered. They lack the skills and the courage to negotiate as equals with men, even where their own well-being is directly involved. And as you know, in South Africa, we have one of the highest rates of gender-based violence and femicide in the world. To get real gender equality, we need policy, we need resources, we need effective partnerships. And we also need help, and to help women to step into their own personal power, to claim it, and to use it for their own good and that of society. The example of successful women plays an influential role in inspiring young women. It helps them to set goals for themselves that they otherwise would never have thought were possible. It's not only about inspiration. As women, we also need to get comfortable in our own power. It is not something we need to apologize for, and we need to learn to negotiate. We need tools, whether we are in the home or in the boardrooms, in schools, or at university, or looking for a job. This is why we are launching this Power to Empower movement, because we know that women can empower other women. To emphasize that we are not as powerless as we believe, I have from the United States of America at Harvard Kennedy School, Professor Julie Battilana, who is a professor of organizational behavior and social innovation at the Harvard Business School and the Harvard Kennedy School, where she's also the founder and the faculty chair of the Social Innovation and Change Initiative. Her research examines the politics of change in organizations and society, especially focusing on organizations and individuals that initiate and implement changes that diverge from the taken for granted norm. Professor Battilana is the author of 2 books, The Working Manifesto, as well as Power for All, which is her latest book. The book explains how power really works and why it is everyone's business. I urge you to get that book. You will love it.
So we've identified 3 main misconceptions, and I want to talk about them today because those are misconceptions that I know that many women have in mind, and it's critical that we debunk them, right? The first misconception is this idea that power is a possession. People often think that there is some innate trait or personal characteristics that could be charisma or good looks, right, that guarantees power. But if you think about it, the reality is that power is always relative. You may have great influence in one set of relationships and be dependent on another. Again, remember, it's about control over access to valued resources. And what's valued at a moment in time in one context may actually vary. And you have to be able to account for that. The second misconception about power is that power is only for people at the top, right? So people would come to someone like me and say, well, you know, I'm not one of these generals. I'm not a CEO. I'm not a top executive. I am not a prime minister. I'm not a president. So I don't really have power. But this is a confusion. Power is not the same as authority. What is authority? It is the formal right to give orders and commands. Your authority may give you some power. But there are situations in which your authority is not going to give you much power. You would be surprised by the number of CEOs, top executives, who come to people like me, close the door and say, I feel powerless. I'm not able to influence the people in my organization in the way I would want. And conversely, and this is critical, you do not need to be at the top to have power. In fact, what Tiziana and I find in our research is that the most effective change makers in organizations are often not the people at the top. They are the people to whom others go for advice, the people who are well connected in the organization, the people others trust. And then, Precious, I want to get to the very final misconception, and it's, I think, going to resonate with the audience because this is probably the most widespread, and it's this idea that power is dirty. So a lot of women would come to me and tell me, you know, I don't think I have the personal traits. I'm not one of the people at the top, but good for me, because at least I'm not getting my hands dirty. Now, let's not be naive. Power can corrupt us. But as we explain in the book, there are things we can do individually and collectively to engage cleanly with power. And the last thing we should do is turn our back on power. We should embrace it as the force we need, understand it, and harness it. And this is something that women need to hear more, because more than men, quite often, they tend to believe that power is not for them, when it is absolutely for everyone. You just need to understand it and then be able to use it to pursue the kind of objectives you want to pursue that are not only about yourself and your own career, but also empowering others. I'm going to end with the word of Martin Luther King. He knew so much about the challenges of change implementation, but what he liked to say was the following: when you're a change maker, you need to accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to join you today.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for your input. So ladies, you had it yourself: social innovation, change, re-engineering, and don't lose hope. Okay, have finite disappointments, but infinite hope. So thank you, Julie. We'll come back to you with our Q&A, and I'm going to hand over to our wonderful Faith Mangope.
First, we're going to go to our online viewers. They've got certain questions that have got posed. And from our online viewers, and then we're going to cross over to our various sites. So we're going to go to Durban, and then we're also going to go to Cape Town, so that we just get an understanding and a feel of what people have got to say. We seem to have a question from our online. Prof, the big question is, how do we keep power under control? Can we keep power under control?
This is such an important question, right? Keeping power in check is something that we all have to pay critical attention to. So what is it that we need to do to make sure that we don't abuse that power individually? Here is what our psychology does to us when we become more powerful. The risk is for us to become more hubristic, and the risk is for us to become more self-centered. That has been documented by social psychology. This is also something we know from our own experiencing and from history. Now, the good news is that we can counter those power poisons. What we need to do to counter the poison of hubris is to cultivate humility. What we need to do to counter the poison of self-centeredness is to cultivate empathy. And so the cultivating of humility and empathy, by the way, practices that women tend to engage in, because this is also what we've learned to do even more so than men. This is absolutely critical, because that's how we are able to not abuse our power. And this is something we all have to do, and this is something we all have to do, men and women. So what is it that we need to do? We need to have strong democratic institutions. We need to make sure that power is shared and that those who are in power are held accountable. This is something absolutely critical that we all have to do. And again, both in organizations and in society. And this is something we talk about in detail in the book, describing the processes and systems to set up in organization and to reinforce in democratic societies.
Start off in Durban first. Let's see if our Durban site has got us. Zozi, are you with us in Durban?
I am with you, Faith. Thank you so much. That has been such an interesting discussion with Professor Battilana. I don't know if you guys have a couple of questions for her. I'm sure that you do. She said a couple of very important things, especially when we think about women in the space of power. I think for so many generations and so many years, power and our voices have been taken away from us. And so she said very, very beautiful things about how we need to harness and tap into that power. I don't know if you have any questions for her. I'm sure you do. A collective question. Oh, it's from the table.
So if you have identified the abuse of power, what do you then do? What are the mechanisms of us dealing with abuse of power?
Now, what do we know about what we can do when we face this abuse of power? Well, what we've learned is that, most importantly, I'm going back to a critical issue I mentioned, there's only so much you can do by yourself. But there's a lot we can do if we join forces as part of collective movements. What we've learned from all the work and the research that has been done is that in countries, in regions, in areas where, for example, the feminist movement has been more active, the situation for women is much better, and women are better able to bring people's attention to the power abuses when they emerge.
Thank you so much for facilitating that conversation out in Durban. Well, from Durban, let's go to the Western Cape. Osbasi, what do we have from the floor?
I have to firstly say thank you, Professor Battilana. You've really challenged our thinking this afternoon. You've stretched our paradigm and really opened our universe in terms of understanding power. So I'm going to look at a show of hands in the room if we have anybody who wants to pose a question. We have a young lady over here. What's your name?
So how does one honor themselves, but most importantly, their communities, while gaining power and redistributing it? Is that even possible considering the inherent violence in power?
Power is neither positive nor negative, right? It is a source of energy we need to make any kind of change happen. Power is about the ability to influence others. And so, as I said, it's about control over access to valued resources. Now, it is up to us to decide what we do with the power we have. So the first step is understand your power. Understand what people need and value in a given context. And then think about how you can access these resources. You may not have them personally, but there's a lot you can do, again, if you reach out to others. You may be surrounded by other women who can help you. And if the case, you're going to be more effective. Have a more diverse network with men, women, non-binary people, people with different demographics, right? Different backgrounds, cultural ones, racial ones. And this is how you're going to be able, with this kind of diverse network, to then build the relational power you need to access the resources you would need to increase and build your power. Now, once you've built your power, it's in your hands. It's up to you to decide how you're going to use it. Dictators use it in a certain way, absolutely. It's one extreme of the spectrum. And then at the other extreme of the spectrum, you have someone like Toni Morrison telling us, if you have any power, then your job is to empower others.
Well, ladies, it's my absolute pleasure now to welcome our sports broadcaster, my fellow co-host with the mostest. This is indeed Lindiwe Dube, the lovely Lindiwe Dube, who will be coming in to interview Madam Fatma Samoura, Secretary General of FIFA. Over to you, the lovely Lindiwe. Thank you very much.
Now, before becoming FIFA Secretary General, Fatma Samoura served as country representative and deputy humanitarian coordinator in 5 countries: Republic of Djibouti, Cameroon, Chad, Guinea, and Niger. In her role as UN resident coordinator and UNDP resident representative in Madagascar from 2010 to 2015 and in Nigeria in 2016. Her leadership and vision has helped empower women and youth change lives and protect the environment. As the first African and woman to hold the position of FIFA Secretary General, Fatma is a trailblazer for diversity and gender equality.
Dr. Precious, thank you for inviting me to participate in what is an important platform for women in Africa and beyond. I did work for 21 years with the United Nations in several countries, experiencing a problem where the political, social, And most of the time I was posted in hardship duty stations. But in my life as a development and humanitarian actor, I met people from different backgrounds, religions, ethnic group, and gender. I saw how they were reacting under stressful and rapidly changing situation. I negotiated in many countries with young child soldiers, but also with warlords, to allow safe passage of extremely needed food for people in countries in transition. And throughout this time, football was always present in my life. And during one of my missions with the World Food Program, I had been sent to Liberia during its civil war, where I saw how the fighting only ever stopped for two things: rain and football. And when you see the kind of power that a simple round ball has to make people lay down their weapons, even if it's very short term, you realize that there is a certain magic and power that this game has. And when I took on the role of Secretary General, FIFA had been through some of the most difficult months in the history of the organization. But in crisis, there is always opportunity. And now, by appointing me as his Secretary General, the FIFA president was making a massive move toward integration. In fact, the word is used is with a Fatma appointment, we are injecting more equality and diversity into the new FIFA. And prior to Johnny's appointment, we have to recognize it, and also from what I have heard and seen, football was pretty much a male-dominated organization and industry. Before I came to FIFA, there were no women in any senior management position. My appointment in 2016 was something very visionary, I should say, by Gianni Infantino. He knew, as a father of 4 girls, and understood that with half of the world's population being made up of women, that meant half of the world football fans were also women, and they needed to be represented.
Madam, thank you so much for sharing your power with us here at the Power to Empower webinar live in Johannesburg, South Africa, proudly brought to you by African Fashion International together with the Motsepe Foundation. When we announced on social media that we are going to be in conversation with Madam Fatma, social media was a buzz. So continue with that hashtag on social media. Share your power, hashtag Power to Empower. Madam, welcome back. We've got a question from our online audience. What is the main lesson you want to share with young women who are embarking on a journey in a male-dominated industry, sports?
Well, I would say that the first thing that you need is to know yourself and to know what you want and go for it. Whether you are a student or if you are a manual worker, before you build a house, you need to have a plan and you need to stick to that plan. And you have to become the best in your field. You have to be confident and be proud and believe in yourself. And most importantly, you need to dream, and we need to dream big. And to those of you who want to get involved in sport, for example, I would suggest that you get involved at the local level first. If football is indeed your passion, go to your local club and see how you can contribute as a player, as a fan, or even as a volunteer. You have to start somewhere.
Madam Fatma Samoura, thank you so much for availing yourself and sharing your power with us, African Fashion International. Thank you so much for making one of my dreams come true. Faith, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lindiwe. Well done. Absolutely amazing conversation that has just happened. And we continue with that spirit of having these amazing, authentic conversations. One would say powerful conversations. Ladies, my absolute pleasure to welcome now to join me on the platform, the chairperson of Anglo American and the author of boardroom dancing, Miss Lolita Fakude. Please give her a round of applause as she comes up, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the woman I'm about to have a conversation with this afternoon. Lolita Fakude is the chairperson of Anglo America's management board in South Africa, as well as the group director responsible for South Africa on Anglo American's PLC's group management committee. Lolita has recently joined the Anglo American Platinum board as a non-executive director and previously served on the board of Anglo American PLC from 2017 to 2019. Now, she has worked in and held senior executive positions in various industries and sectors. This includes retail, financial services, mining, oil and gas. Where do you find the time? Until 2016, Fakude served as an executive director at Sasol Limited and executive vice president of strategy and sustainability. Ladies, please welcome Ms. Nolitha.
Thank you very much, Faith, for that introduction.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us for such a conversation that is very pertinent. You know, a lot of times when we're looking at the business arena, we always consider our gender. So for you being a woman in business, do you feel like as though you've moved 10 steps back, as opposed to if you were a man with a similar ambition in the business world as well? As soon as women get into business, do they just become disenfranchised because they are women in business as opposed to their male counterparts?
Being a woman going into any environment, including business, where you are not expected to be there, because these spaces we've moved into over the years, we were never expected to be there as black women and even as black people. So already you come in with the decks completely stacked against you. And therefore, for me, the setbacks that I experienced and my generation that experience throughout the years have been to really first understand what exactly is the language that is being discussed and the coding that is happening within the boardroom, hence even the title of Boardroom Dancing, because we've been trying to decode the language that is spoken behind the boardroom doors.
It's so profound what you're saying. It reminds me of something that many women in power suffer from, imposter syndrome. You're not supposed to be there. Would you do anything differently the second time around?
Second time around, I wouldn't. Because, and I'll tell you why, because the older I get, the more I realize that the differentiator for me has been my own authenticity, who I am. This is who I am, and that's what I bring to the table. Obviously, your competence, your qualifications, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, or accountant, is the ticket to the game. It gets you there. But your own authenticity and your values also anchor you throughout your career. And for me, because of that, now I'll say I won't change much around that. And definitely, having said that, there's also lessons, obviously, in the process. When you come in, you bring something unique. That is you. Who you are is Faith, who I am as Nolitha. And as a young woman coming in, you've got to know who you are, what to stand for. Because again, being intentional about the choices that you make throughout your career, how you listen, what you get involved in, and also which industries you select is going to really help you navigate your career throughout as you move forward.
With over 25 years of international experience, primarily in financial services, Leila Faria has served on multiple boards and held senior roles in banking, capital markets, as well as payments. Leila was appointed CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange effective on the 1st of October 2019. So prior to this role, she held the role of CEO of the Australian Payments Network. Leila served as well as executive responsible for consumer finance at Australia's largest bank, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and served as the NSW Vice President of the Economic Society of Australia, as well as on the board audit committee of Lifeline Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Leila, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to Precious for an absolutely amazing and uplifting and inspiring event.
I know that certainly your journey has been quite inspirational. Let's talk a little bit about your journey. I mean, to the CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, does that mean that you get to give us some tips?
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to insider trade.
Darn it. I tried, Dr. Leila.
And if I could, I would probably not be doing this job. I'd be sitting, sipping something with an umbrella in it 100%. On a beach.
Oh. Let's talk about your journey so far. How was that journey for you to get there, just to get to as CEO of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange?
I think, Faith, my journey is very much like any other female, and people tend to think that the JSE is a very aspirational job or role. But in fact, every leadership role that any female, particularly in South Africa, holds is something that should be respected and cherished. And I think my journey has really been one of experiencing, enjoying, and also giving back stewardship. Sandner speaks very much about this rocket ship support. And if I look through my career, I haven't had rocket ship stewardship, but I've had consistent, steady support. And in the beginning, it wasn't always from women. In many instances, it came from men. It's given me a really important value system, which is, as women, we need to support those people around us. We need to give back, and we need to pay it forward. And if we want other women to succeed generally, we have to make sure that we empower and we role model the value system that is required to encourage women into positions of leadership. I think the biggest challenge that I experienced is that the rules of the game were previously, and to a large extent now, set by men. And those rules of corporate behavior were set on the playground, even on the soccer field that Fatma has been speaking about. And unfortunately, the changes that are required to create a value system that resonates with women and that values the things that are really important, empathy, humility, is still very much something that's evolving. So while I was working my way up through my career path, the value system was incongruent with who I am. And I did often feel that imposter syndrome that you spoke about just now, because the behaviors that very powerful men in leadership positions displayed were not something that came naturally to me. And my advice to people would be, just as Nolitha had said, be yourself, be authentic, embrace your femininity and embrace your empathy. Because if we look around the COVID world, all of those successful people and leaders, many of them are female. And it's because of that empathy, because of that humility, because of the ability to build relationships and the connectivity with other humans in the room that we're successful. And so I think gradually we are starting to change those challenges that we experienced, the older generation experienced, but there's still a long way to go.
You know, you're speaking about a long way to go as well. Oh, let's speak about this one that is constantly evolving, South Africa's economy. So South Africa's economy has been one that is, obviously, you cannot avoid it, right? We are a product of it. But does it provide opportunity for women? And to what extent does South Africa's current economy actually provide these opportunities to women?
Well, I think if we look at the youth unemployment rate, the economy is not supporting growth and development, whether it's for men or for women. When we focus in on women, one of the things that is really breaks my heart is the inequality that is being created by the pandemic, that is being exacerbated. The inequality was always there, and those fracture lines were always there, but they really are being exacerbated. Girl children who miss a year in school are going to be set back potentially forever. And so I think the root of what needs to happen in our country and what needs to happen in our economy to grow and develop girls is the stem cell subjects need to be supported. Education is crucial. The number, we've seen stats even today, 30% of entrepreneurs are female. That stat has to come up to 60%. And so more work needs to be done to guide and mentor and educate women to take on entrepreneurial roles, to take on leadership roles. We have a long way to go, and yet we are ahead of many other countries. I lived in Australia for 3 years, and when I came back, I felt so refreshed because women are far more embraced, but yet in this economy, we're only 30% of females are sitting on boards right now. So we still have a long way to go.
Yeah. talk to us about your young woman self. What do you say to a young woman who is listening to you right now and saying, I also have aspirations to someday be the CEO of the JSE. I also have similar ambitions. What do you say to them?
I think the question you're asking me is, what would I tell my former self when I first started out in the working environment? And what I would say to myself is, back yourself, be confident, and don't back down. I personally really lacked confidence when I was young, and I see so many other females in junior roles who are just not confident enough to follow through and to support themselves, and their male counterparts swan in with half of the preparation, with half of the skill, and yet they exude this absolute confidence. So I would say just back yourself and support yourself and believe in yourself.
Nita is a fashion designer and a writer and one of 5 finalists for the 2020-2021 AFI Fast Track program. In a moment, we'll tell you all about this Fast Track program. So Fast Track is part of AFI's development strategy. It is an initiative that identifies as well as invests in the best of the continent's young designers, and by providing them with direct access to mentorship, to marketing and business acumen, and through year-long programs that prepare them to navigate this fashion landscape. Thank you so much, Anita, for joining us this afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about the realities now, some things that we don't share much on Instagram. So, the hardest part about trying to be a young, successful woman in a world that is very much deemed to be a man's world. How's that journey been for you?
I mean, I think we all know that it's not easy. I think, I'd like to start by saying, a lot of the difficulties faced by young women of color, specifically in South Africa, are also faced by young queer people of color. And I think, we need to start de-centering binary gender and heteronormativity in how we view and value people in our societies. I think, as young women and young queer people of color, we need to work together. I think solidarity is our strongest tool in empowering ourselves and our communities. We need to see more diversity. And, for young people of color, we need to stop letting ourselves be defeated by imposter syndrome. We're told constantly that our lack of experience means that we're incapable of doing things. And I think we need to stop seeing lack of experience as a problem. We need to stop seeing it as lack of knowledge as opposed to a different type of knowledge. I think, young people don't have experience of the way the world works, but they have potential to experience the world the way it should be.
Barbara Bambiso is the Chief Financial Officer at King Price Life. Kosi, please make your way to the podium to come and sit right by our side. Please give her a round of applause. So prior to actual King Price Life, she occupies senior positions at major insurers, Liberty as well as Hollard. She was the founding director of The Shard, which is a consulting company specializing in providing actuarial, financial, as well as auditing solutions to insurers. Her passion is working with startups and growing them to disrupt major players. I think the big question for you, Kosi, is, the most valuable lesson that you've learned in this journey and the advice so far, the valuable advice that you can give with the journey that you've traveled thus far.
Oh, thank you so much, Faith, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Dr. Precious, for this opportunity to actually sit, breathing this air. I already feel empowered, like I'm going to leave here and I'm going to make a difference in life. The greatest advice that I received was actually from my strategy lecturer, who said, treat your life like a company, right? You are the CEO of your life. And at that point in time, I was very young and naive, and I didn't know what exactly that meant. But he actually broke it down for us, because these are principles that he got from a book called How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. He said a company has a vision and a mission statement, right? That is written everywhere. You look, you enter any company, you see there's a board that says, we exist for this reason, right? As a person, as an individual, you exist for a specific reason, right? You were not created to just be here on earth, breathe and leave. So you are here for a purpose. So you just need to realize what your purpose is and write it everywhere. It's a reminder. It's what gets you up in bed to actually say, I'm going to take on this day. It reminds you of why you exist. So just write it everywhere. A company has a strategy, right? A strategy is how do I then realize that vision for myself, right? So you then need to spend time with yourself and understand what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, right? My strengths for me personally was finance. So I knew that I'm going to then go do something in finance and in commerce. And what are my weaknesses? My weaknesses was actually networking and personal branding because I'm such a shy person naturally. So then when you actually look and you just embrace everything about yourself, what are the opportunities that are presented to you? You then look at if this is what I want to achieve in life, what are other women that are in my stream doing? Actually, they are part of programs like AWC. They're part of programs like IFC, IWF, SA, and then you join those programs, right? So that's where you go in. And so then you also have an implementation plan for your life. I think a lot of people spoke about intentionality. When you have an implementation plan for your life, you then look and say, what do I need to do to actually realize that vision? What do I need to do daily, weekly, monthly to actually realize that vision? So then I started then joining programs.
This is a summation of what you've just said, and it's just so profound. It's how we need to handle ourselves as a business plan.
Yeah.
A living, walking, breathing business plan, and take ourselves that seriously.
Yeah.
Ladies, you have been fantastic. You've been insightful. And I don't know about the shy thing, because nothing about you said that you're shy. You just said I'm shy, and I was like, I don't believe you, girl. Imposter syndrome. Well, ladies, let me introduce you to the AFI Fast Track show, right? It's a fast track program. So fast track is part of AFI's development strategy. It is an initiative that identifies and invests in the best of the continent's young designers. Don't know what I'm talking about? Have a look.
AFI Fast Track is a national platform offered to fashion design graduates. Emerging designers are introduced to the business of fashion through a range of opportunities presented through its affiliation with AFI's various marketing and event platforms. 5 young designers are selected to showcase their capsule collections at AFI's lifestyle events. Following a process of mentorship, the winner is awarded the title of Young Designer of the Year, as well as a cash prize to invest in growing their brand. Here are the 2021 Fast Track finalists.
So I would say that my definition of a power look is a garment or a look that makes you feel powerful.
A definition of a power look is something I believe it needs to make a woman feel confident. I always think that pushing the boundaries is what confidence is.
My definition of a power look is a look put together with thought and time, that when worn evokes the emotion of strength and beauty.
The inspiration behind my garment was driven by comfort, quality and affordability.
The inspiration behind the garment that I created, I wanted to instill power into women in the corporate world. They're always seen as inferior against the man, and with this suit, it's almost like a piece of armor.
I'm inspired by a host of strong women. My designs, they tell a story of rising from the ashes. My ancestors were indentured laborers who fought against poverty, racism, and patriarchy. The women were and are the backbone of our family.
I think we need to, as a society, be listening to women more, and we need to be given space to be that isn't just encompassed in 1 month. Women's Month needs to be longer than a month, and we need to start acknowledging the importance and power of women in every day and in every way.
For more information about the Fast Track program, visit AfricanFashionInternational.com.
We appreciate you, we value you, and you are powerful. If nobody has ever told you you are powerful, may this resonate with you this afternoon, that you are powerful.